All right, welcome to the Buddha the Base. Today's episode, Mer-Ka-Bah, light spirit body in the heart's electromagnetic field. Magneto-hydrodynamic levitation of H plus ions in the plasma wind of the toroidal vortex. So what the heck is a toroidal vortex? Well, if you type in Heart Math Institute into Google, you'll get the AI overview just like I got, and they'll tell you the heart's electromagnetic field is often described as toroidal, meaning it forms a donut or tube-like shape. This field extends outwardly from the heart and it does play a role in communication, both with one's own body and with the external environment using biophotonics. Every living organism, okay, that's electrically motivated uses this same color map, this color communication map as a signaling mechanism. Okay, photonic emissions are means of cellular communication. They're the proof of cell-to-cell communication. We for the longest time we focused merely on the electrical signal, the electrical excitation, the axon potential, the axon pulse, the synapse, if you will. That is true, but the biophotonic and then the phonon, the sound as well as the light is also affecting the information. In fact, the memory is often biophotonically stored along with it. It's complicated and yet it's not. All living systems emit pulses of light. It's just a fact. Now, the shape, okay, the shape of this torus, it's a three-dimensional shape resembling a donut or an inner tube. Okay, there's a whole top, hole at the bottom, and the energy travels around. There's a vertical loop, if you will, that's the electric pole. Then there's the magnetic loop going. Okay, so there's the electrical and the magnetical fields, if you will, involved. That's why it's the heart's electromagnetic field. Now, it's powerful, just like the Earth's electromagnetic field is incredibly powerful. Okay, this field can be measured outside the body. It's thought to be involved in various physiological and emotional processes. The heart has neurons, so does the stomach. Okay, so these heart neurons and these stomach neurons are processing emotional information. Okay, that's just a fact. It's not just, is this good food to eat? It's what am I feeling right now? Because we know the stomach is also giving us the dopamine and the serotonin, as well as the midbrain, the roof of the midbrain. The gut itself is producing a lot of these beneficial neurotransmitters, and that's coming from its communication with the heart. Okay, and this is then showing up in the field around our bodies. So the toroidal field of the heart is believed to interact with other fields, both within the body and the surrounding environment. It's been suggested that the field plays a role in emotional and energetic communication between individuals. So just like me and you right now, you're receiving my information. If you are sensitive and attuned, you can come get the information from my heart's field as well. You could travel, if you will, in your Mer-Ka-Bah, your light spirit body, and come find me, because now we're connected. If you're listening, you can come get whatever information that I have. You can come get it from my field. It's an amazing thing. It's like people were healed by just being near Jesus or by touching the hem of his garment, being anywhere near to the field or anything that person's touched. Like for Jesus, his swaddling clothes provided healing. The metachlorians in his DNA were imprinted. So coherence and emotions. When the heart is in a state of coherence, a state of balance and harmony, which would be low entropy, right? Like Thomas Campbell was saying, it's an entropy reduction machine. It's what the Mer-Ka-Bah is. So when the heart is in a state of coherence, a state of balance and harmony, electromagnetic field, which relate back to our chi energy, we feel stronger and our energy feels more coherent. We can feel the chi. We can feel our hands, the centers of our hands, the centers of our feet, soles of our feet. You can make the chi ball and expand the chi ball, and you feel it. So this coherence is associated with positive emotions. You can have and we begin, if we're doing that, now you're going to be processing emotions on the left ventromedial cortex. That's where your emotional relationships are processed. And then you're going to have larger the larger impact of what you're doing, that's going to be at the sensory parietal junction, or the temporal parietal junction, the left side. Um, that's where these are the areas of the right hemisphere of the brain. I'm saying the left side. You have to forgive me. When I say left side, I actually mean the right hemisphere because the right hemisphere controls the left side. So I mean the right hemisphere, the right hemispheres, because when I want to shift back to make sure my right hemisphere is leading my consciousness, I have to make sure I'm looking through my left eye. Looking through your left eye is an indication that your right hemisphere is your dominant processing hemisphere. Remember that your two cerebral hemispheres are competing for blood and attention, right? They both need, both sides of your brain are often in a sort of parallel processing mode. That's what the beta brainwave is. It allows for the discontinuity between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere as they process in parallel. And then whatever eye you look through is kind of a nod to whatever side you think is doing a better job of giving you a theory of mind or processing your reality or helping you solve your problem, whatever the case may be. My larger argument in doing this Buddha the Basin podcast is that, and this is what Thomas Campbell says, he says 80% of his life, he's making decisions based upon his intuitive operating system, not logic. By that, I am pretty sure he means his right hemispheric um, uh, temporal parietal junction and the right hemisphere, or ventral medial cortex. Okay, but I will have to make sure I'm right on the because I'm saying I'm not really. I'll have to look later about this left versus the right ventral medial prefrontal cortex. But the point is that that's where your emotional processing is taking place. Okay, not your logical processing of a situation. That's dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, more like the dead center. Ventral medial is more towards down and towards the front, but shaped towards the side down, closer to where your cheeks are actually. Um, so again, but getting back to the heart field, so we understand that the heart field is coherent based upon the heart's connection with the brain, and the heart's understanding of the goals that the brain is trying to accomplish, or I'm sorry, the being is trying to accomplish. For too long, we've centered or oriented our consciousness in our brain. Even now, it's the microtubules in the brain. It's so consciousness, and that is true. Arousal and awakening, in the sense, I wake up within my brain. That's true. The anterior cingularis, brainstem, cerebellum, they use the magnetite signaling system, which is also the biophotonic signaling system, to keep me awake and alert and processing information. That's what we now know. Magnetite is also found in the heart and at these 7 chakra points along the spine. This magnetite is the great memory molecule. It's the signaling system that uses the liquid crystal water and photons. So, kind of begin with this. You can imagine doing the middle pillar activity right now. The middle pillar activity, you imagine a big sphere of light above your head. Okay, well, first you can imagine a point, right? Because light, we always think of the photon as just a point. Any point in space is a photon, and you're existing at a point in space. There's a photon above your head, and then around this photon is a sphere, a big sphere of light. Okay, and then you can imagine this sphere begins to rotate on its axis, and that forms the torus. That's a toroidal form. And so then this energy can begin to descend from this sphere as it spins, and the next sphere is around your throat center. Okay, this is Israel Regardie's middle pillar activity. So you have a sphere of light on top of your head connected to this little tube, silver tube, clear breathing tube, down to your throat center, and you have another sphere of light. And you begin to articulate Yod He Va He Eloah, or Yod He Va He Elohim, Yod He Va He Elohim. And then you allow this energy from another sphere of light at your center. This is where you chant Yod He Va He Eloah Vedas. That's where the heart's, that's the sort of heart center. And you go down to the stomach. making a sphere of light, and then on until you reach the feet. There's one around the gonads and the prostate and all too. And what you're doing is you're connecting to this tube of light. This tube of light connects you to your higher self, and where it eventually stops is the Earth center. You see, that's the starseed information, is that you as a seed came to connect and ground into Mother Earth, because Mother Earth as Gaia is awakening and trying to get fourth density, as this area of the galaxy we're moving to is fifth density. We've been the third for 75,000 years. It's time to get out of third density, and it's the protons are going to begin to spin faster. And that's what we know is what consciousness is now, because consciousness is the quantum entangled spin of the protons within the microtubules in the brain that gives you a consciousness moment. Because most of the processes are happening regardless of whether you're conscious of them or not. The consciousness itself is coming from that reawakening, rearousal, as your default mode slightly alters itself to come up with new information, to interact with novel stimuli, let's say. And it's really just coming into contact with light. Everything is designed to receive changes in light and temperature. So in return to the idea of the Mer-Ka-Bah is a star tetrahedron. What people have found is that if it's one photon, it's a single point, but four can become confined. When the four together, they can become confined in matter, and that forms sort of a cross symbol. And this Maltese cross is traveling in space. They take an octahedral form, right? But when they become trapped, they become like two tetrahedron superimposed. This is the star tetrahedron, and this is the Mer-Ka-Bah. It's that vehicle of realigning the photons, so that the light particles can begin to spin and create and go against entropy, do that negative entropy state where it's anti-gravitic, and that's what the Mer-Ka-Bah is. It's a way for you to leave your consciousness to leave the body. But all too often we focus on this aspect of the Mer-Ka-Bah, getting out and leaving the body. You came to Earth, and really you are the circuit that's awaiting completing. The Earth is actually awaiting your consciousness, your energy, your intelligent energy. Your DNA is the prism, the hexagonal prism, or the toroidal prism. It's a toroidal hexagonal prism, or a hexagonal toroidal. Yeah, it's a hexagonal toroid is what your DNA, the shape of your DNA. And the prism is that, the light passes through. So, and this imprints the DNA upon the light as the light and the ions are going to Earth, bringing the information. So light, it enters in a plasma stream of electrons, H plus ions, neutrinos, helium ions, and nitrogen as it passes down toroidal energy field openings from the sun through the sky and then down to us. Okay, it's filtered into our understanding through the heart's electromagnetic field, which is powered by this magneto-hydrodynamic motion of the H plus ions being pumped up and out of the body and into the magnetosphere of the human body or human energy field, while other H plus ions move around the energy field in a plasma wind. This is what we'll get to it. The kids see the field has a motion. Your energy field has a fluidity to it. It moves like water, but what's actually moving, perhaps in water vapor, is these H plus ions. So this magneto-hydrodynamic action creates the Mer-Ka-Bah light spirit body. If the body is able to convert those H plus ions back into the light, the gamma rays, and ATP, it's always trying to convert and get the energy, harness energy. So this field is all encompassing, like Thomas Campbell said, in terms of getting the information holographically, the energy field from cells, from larger organs and organ systems, networks, such as the cardiovascular system and the excretionary system. It's a human biofield. You see, that's the paradigm shift to understand the human biofield. Okay. So this biofield, at its most basic, is a complex dynamic field of energy and information that surrounds and permeates living organisms. It encompasses measurable electromagnetic fields produced by the heart, brain, and sensitivity, as well as subtler forms of energy that science is still working hard to understand. So research has confirmed that your heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends 3 to 6 feet beyond your physical body. This field is approximately 100 times stronger electrically and up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the field produced by your brain. So think about that, right? This means that your energetic presence literally reaches out to interact with everything and everyone around you. Okay? All right. So within our healthy lifestyle community, we've observed that when members become aware of this energetic reality, they naturally become more conscious of how they show up in their relationships and environments. So the reality is we know protons are being shuttled using quantum forces like quantum gravity and electromagnetism in ways not fully understood, or at least not fully articulated beyond phrases like spooky action at a distance and quantum non-locality, quantum superposition, and quantum entanglement. Apparently, the quantum forces only work in the presence of water, special water, magic water, EZ, exclusionary zone water, quantum water. Dr. Gerald Pollack has done the work on this, and so has Dr. Esther Del Rio, and Dr. Linus Pauling, the physicist. This water is made of 30 molecules of H2O. These 37 molecules are alternating their geometric composition every second. At one point in time, this macromolecule of EZ water is in a crystalline clathrate composed of 32 molecules that form a dodeca/icosahedron, that's the 12 and the 20, with the innermost tetrahedron consisting of 4 equilateral triangles over a square base. And then at the frequency of 10 to the minus 11 seconds, it switches to 4 octahedrons as the tetrahedron goes into a quantum superposition as a star tetrahedron, or if you may say it, it goes into quantum non-locality before returning. So this quantum tunneling of the electron involved in the hydrogen bonds as well as the spin-locked protons seem to be able to transmit information across the whole structure. This could be the whole biohologram, or certainly wherever the local structure of the water, or wherever the water is. And of course, we are made of water. The brain is 90%, most of the body is 75%. We presume that the water is doing this. It's the water in our brains and our neurons, more specifically in our cells and microtubules in those cells, the pyramidal cells, right? And it's really the microtubules which are in the cells, which are in the very cytoskeleton, which is floating in a sea of cytosol, right? The cellular liquid. The cytosol vibrates with the sound of and the microtubules work with the water to keep the biophotonic transmission of information going via light and electricity. I see the body holographic. We now know that magnetite, which is how we get the holograms, we now know that because it makes a tiny electromagnetic fields. We now know that magnetite is in the cells of major organs, such as the liver, spleen, heart, and brain, and it is located at the seven main points along the spine that correspond with the pineal, pituitary, thyroid, thymus, pancreas, ovaries, kidneys, and prostate or colon. It seems that all these organs are able to communicate with the brain and with each other using this biophotonic signaling system made possible by the water, magnetite, and the conducting signaling power of DNA itself. We know that cells send the biophotonic signals to each other when they are electrically activated or stimulated, as when thinking or communicating. We know there is plenty enough magnetite in the brain and heart for those biophotonic signals to exit the body and be visible for at least 12 inches around the body. At least that is how big the human energy field is, or the aura aspect is for young kids. Now, Dr. Del Rio's work is the basis for the modern theory of the chakras and how liquid crystal water is responsible for the healing of the entire human energy field. So she originally was looking at protoplasm, okay, and how these protoplasmic organisms think and make decisions. There's no neurons. She assumed it was in the water, which is the primary constituent of the protoplasm. So water is a substance of chemical characteristics sui generis because of the bipolarity of the molecule, and as a result, it's the best solvent in the world. Okay. Basically, Del Rio finds these ferric particles. Okay. These different kinds of sort of these different kinds of magnetite or iron oxide particles in the water. So these ferrous and ferric particles, they generate a potential difference, which could conduct electricity. While one is oxidized, the other is reduced and therefore generated and formed energy individually and together around the entire body. To demonstrate that, she used a modified X-ray device and photographed the centers of magnetic accumulation and energy. Thus, these match the areas of concentration of each of these microparticles, magnetite, with the so-called chakras. So it's these areas of magnetite that form little circles, or spheres, and rhombuses. Those correspond with the human chakras, and we always see in the chakras there's the triangles and the circles. Those are these forms of these ferrospheric microparticles that the yogis saw. So it's this very special crystal water she also discovered. It's H2O37, liquid crystal water. Okay, uh, this water retains the properties of the movement of liquid over the reflective properties of optical glass. It has the ability to save and store information and move importantly, the ability to retransmit. So it's going to retransmit the same way a computer microchip does. It's the way our DNA, it's the means by which the DNA is communicating, the means through which the electrons are able to tunnel. The quantum tunneling is through the water. It's all happening through this mesomorphic state or fourth phase of water. Okay. So to be clear, I definitely believe that Dr. Esther Del Rio has discovered the scientific basis of the chakras observed by Hindu sages thousands of years ago. And thank you, Dr. Del Rio. I'm returning now to the observational study of human energy fields in infants and young children by Jeffrey Lee, PhD, Jean A. Metzger, Masters in Science, and Jean M. Hilton, PhD. Okay, so the important finding, this was a study that was conducted with human energy fields. And so the sample included infants and young children in 3 different age groups. The youngest group was comprised of infants with mean age of 8 months, with a range of 6 to 10 months. The second group consisted of young children with a mean age of 31.3 months, with a range of 28 to 33 months. And the oldest group, including children with a mean age of 52.2 months and a range of 50 to 55 months. So the intent was to find children closest to the midpoint of 6 months, 30 months, and 54 months. So that's half a year old, and then 2.5 years old, and then 4.5 years old, respectively. The first 2 groups were slightly older than intended, with target ages of 6 and 30 months, while the third group was slightly younger than the target age, 54 months, but all 3 groups were fairly close to the targeted means. The choice of 3 females and 3 males in each group would have been preferable, but the choices in each group, especially the youngest group, were limited. The infant group consisted of 8 choices, of which a few intermittently attended the center. The 6 infants chosen for the study were the only ones available at the times chosen whose parents were willing to have them participate, in addition to the 1 afternoon-only child whose parents accommodated this study by bringing the infants to the center in the late morning. Inadvertently, there were 4 males and 2 females in each of the 3 groups. The decision was made to stick close to the intended age rather than force gender balance. There was no reason to believe at this point that gender made a significant difference, and it was felt that the similarity in ages was the most critical factor for the research. So, basically the samples, the samples included infants and young children in 3 different age groups. The youngest group was comprised of infants with a mean age of 8 months. Oh, we already read that. I mean to say, within the youngest group, okay, that's the group with the infants about 8 months, okay, the density of the human energy field was consistently low, as in to moderate, which is good. The density means it wasn't too thick. These children tended to have fields that were not very dense. They also had a moderate amount of light transparency, consistent with the amount of low light density just described. The width of the energy fields tended short to medium all the way around, including above the head. The very young children typically had energy fields of less than 12 inches. In terms of shape, so rings were identified or occurred in half of this group, raised with all 6 of the children, and squares in 5. Consistent with the density and transparency, the movement of the fields also tended to be slow to moderate, but all 6 of these children were observed pulling energy in from somewhere else outside the field. Finally, the fields tended to be fairly dynamic overall for all 6 children. So what they end up saying in the study is that the older the kids get, the more disturbances they'd find are blockages around the sacral and solar plexus chakra zones, the stomach, and then you say the bladder, the kidneys, renal complex area. And the point I'm making here is that water stores memory, and it's the water in the cells that remember. It can become heavy, and this heavy sludge energy is from the waters that stored the memory, and it's remained projected to the bioflux system outfield. Okay. Basically, that's just a fact. The water that's been darkened, so to speak, and that the negative energy complex is somehow projected out into the field, and that's imprinted upon those ions and biophotons. That's how you get the bioplasma. Okay, And we need this bioplasma. We need more free electrons and more dynamic H plus ions. We need fresh bioplasma and chi so we can heal the body. We have to heal the force field from the inside using the body. We're going to eventually reproject out to the field and cleanse it with using the mind. Okay, the mind's focus is the key. Focus is the ability to see. We have to focus our chi. We have to focus our energy. Energy flows where attention goes. When we break our attention, we break the electron-positron pair and lose the light, and the positrons scatter and knock out or displace other electrons or affect other consciousness around us. Okay, it's just a fact. Okay, there's always these electron-positron pairs. Every time there's an electron, it's going next to with the positron, and the goal with that pranayama breathing and meditation is that you get the positron and the electron to be parallel, so they can eventually annihilate, and that's how you get light. That's a photon can be split into an electron and a positron, and then they can be remerged to create a proton. Yeah, to create a photon. It's just this very interesting sort of quasi mythological but truly scientific fact. The photon is split into an electron-positron pair. The electron-positron pair can be rejoined to create a photon and gamma ray energy. And this all happens through the electromagnetic force and the force of the human will. Okay. So we have to keep our focus so we can focus this living energy of electron-positron pairs and this biophotonic quantum gravity so that the chi comes up from our feet. Because we're connecting to Gaia, to the center of Gaia, and we have to wait for Gaia to send us the energy back. And it comes back up to the right side, back up to the sole of the right foot. Okay, and that point below our feet is known as Malkuth, or it's the kingdom in Kabbalah. And this starts the macrocosmic, or the larger chi orbit, as it comes up the right leg to the perineum, and that's where the root chakra is, the coccyx and the perineum. And that point in the Kabbalah is known as Yesod. It's our foundation. From the coccyx, we move up to the point in Chinese medicine known as the Dantian. This is sort of where the hara is. You can reach the hara energetically from here, although the hara is actually not in the physical body. It's actually identical in metric to the sapphire tifa ray in the Kabbalah. It's raised up more like where the solar plexus chakra, kind of above it, nearest where the diaphragm is, but it's not the diaphragm. That's where tifa ray is, how it relates back to our breathing in the hara line. So the microcosmic orbit comes from the sacral chakra, where the exclusionary zone water has allowed for the H plus ions to be separated, and here's where the H plus ions must be summoned up the Sushumna to the midbrain crystal palace. That's the upper Dantian, where this action or this mystical marriage will result in electron-positron pair being annihilated into light and gamma energy as the quantum implosion starts the Mer-Ka-Bah vehicle spinning. So the core star of the being is actually the deepest level, and this resides at the deeper level, the heart. It's known as Da'ath, or the 11th Sephira or sapphire in the Kabbalah. When you've had the experience of returning back to your core, that is Da'ath. That's the true mystical saving knowledge. Nothing can really harm you when you're at that point. We know that the protons spins in the brain become coupled. That's what that Trinity study in 2022 revealed. And so it's not a stretch of that proton coupling and the shared proton spin of all the H plus ions in the human energy field, both within the cells and without. They all have that same relevant connection to our DNA. They can all begin to spin. You see, they're all connected. And that's what Elena Denon is saying. As we get to fourth density, it's between the particles is different, and their spin becomes rate of frequency becomes faster. It's a change of consciousness due to the changing spin potentials and rates. They can just process more energy and do so faster. That's just the truth. So gains the speed of light brings to the top of the tree of life, and that's Kether, or the crown chakra. Now, speed of light is not nothing super. We know it is super, but we already know that DNA can process or zip itself, so to speak, into the double helix coiling speed of light. Going twice the speed of light is what allows for remote viewing and bilocation. The microcosmic orbit brings the electrons back down the front of the body, and as they are coupled with the positrons, this is what allows for the chi energy or life force to move freely throughout the body. And it is this circulation of the breath, blood, and free electrons that's critical or key to maintaining the chi, microcosmic orbit. It's the circulation of the H plus ions, or the free protons, from the top of the head down to the bottom of the feet, and then down to the core of the earth, and then back up the inner right leg, and then up the Sushumna, where we can send the energy up the inside of the right arm, and then back that before it spins up the outside of the arm, up to the shoulder, and up to the right ear, and through the brain, and down the left arm inside, and then the left side of the body, and down the left leg outside, and down to the left foot, and then back to Gaia, which is the earth. That's completing the circuit. Om Shanti Om. The circles, triangles, and smaller shapes we see on the chakras, such as on the solar plexus chakra, that's the result of the magnetohydrodynamic force of quantum gravity helping the iron oxide macromolecules shape themselves accordingly into either spheroids or tetrahedrons. And this may depend on whether they're ferrous or ferric, according to Dr. Esther Del Rio. Getting back to the third chakra, this is where the Hara line really gets messed up in most of us. We muddy up our connection, and our emotional imbalance leads to the blockages of our energies. And that's what Jeffrey Lee's study showed. Having spiritual epiphany just comes from lining up the iron oxide macromolecules just right to let the light and spiraling kundalini energy of the H plus ions rise up the central channel, and the electrical arc completed by the free electrons around the microcosmic orbit keeps the chi circulating. This is primarily electrical. And eventually one must address the energy disorders happening with the first three or lowest three chakras. So to address that, deep abdominal breathing is one method, and it's recommended. Also, shaking intensely as well as laughing intensely are also good methods. The macrocosmic orbit involves energy moving up the right side of the body and then tipping over to the left side and going down, and a cooling energy down the left side. This way, we are imagining a spiral of energy coming up from the feet and up the inside of the right leg, the perineum and the coccyx. We further imagine the energy traveling up the back and up the right side, and then down the front and the left side in a chi waterfall. Then we must move our awareness to our heart center and feel dynamics as the organ systems and chakras communicate with each other telepathically, and we communicate with each other telepathically using the biophotonic light and proton shuttling of these magnetohydrodynamic protons that phase into and out of our reality from the water to the beyond and back every second as the universe is recreated. Om Shanti Om.